Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us here today. Joining me for this video is my brother Jordan.
What's up, guys?
And I've watched this, or listened to it at least 4 times. This will be his first time hearing it. This is, of course, Phil Spencer's interview with the Kinda Funny Games Xcast, which is their Xbox podcast. And he says a few things. I got it pre-recorded here, so we're going to be pausing it and watching it back and forth that way. And I already have a lot to say. This will be his first time hearing it. So we're going to be muted during the time when the video's on, and then afterwards we'll switch back and we'll talk about it that way. But all right, so we're going to go ahead and get this started.
A tough week in the Xbox universe. As you know, of course, the CMA kind of blocking our acquisition of Activision Blizzard King, and Redfall coming out to poor reviews at the launch. Let's start off at the top. Phil, let's talk about the CMA and, of course, this Activision Blizzard acquisition. How are you feeling about this? What should be the overall mindset for Xbox gamers when we look at this after months and months of conversation?
Yeah, we remain confident. Obviously, the news from the CMA, which for those not tracking all this, is the United Kingdom's regulatory board on acquisitions to block the acquisition. We'll be appealing that. That's our plan. We continue to work with the European Union. We'll continue to work with the FTC. I think there are like 14 jurisdictions all up. We're working on approval. I think we have 9 approvals so far. But the CMA decision was disappointing. I've been talking to that group for coming up on a year. They've defined a market of cloud gaming that, in my mind, doesn't really exist yet today. But they have a point of view that maybe we have a lead in a market that is just forming, and that this content could somehow prohibit others from competing in that market. But we'll appeal. We stay on it. The company remains very, very committed. We think Activision Blizzard King is not our strategy, but it is an accelerant for our strategy. So we're still heads down and working through regulatory.
I am pleased to hear that, of course, as a big fan.
So essentially, Phil's just talking about how they obviously for the last, I think it's been 9 months, have been trying to buy Activision. PlayStation has been making a huge deal about it, basically saying like, they can't do what they do unless they have the money that they get from having Call of Duty on their platform. And Xbox, I don't know, been paying attention. They're not going to take Call of Duty away, not right away at least. But you don't spend $70 billion for Call of Duty or Activision to just be like, yeah, here it is. Everyone has some. They signed deals with a bunch of companies that once they got the company that they would still put Call of Duty. They wanted to put it on Nintendo platforms, which is interesting. But hey there, Omar. Yeah, they have. This interview really is like, it's almost better that they have not got Call of Duty with after like what Phil Spencer says, because I don't know if it's Xbox's direction, but with him as a leader and hearing what he's about to say later on in this interview, it might have been better off if they didn't get Call of Duty, to be honest.
I think it's funny that he said that, Activision isn't their strategy. It's just an accelerant for what they want to do. But I mean, it's a pretty big accelerant to spend that much money on.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll find out here, but
of many of those gaming franchises over there. I'm looking forward to seeing this deal go through, and I'm glad to hear that you and the team are still hard at work at making this happen. It's been a long road. It's been a tough road to talk about it each and every single week, kind of falling apart, but I'm
It's always the Brits, isn't it, Mike? We're always the fly in the ointment. We just got to rain on everyone's parade.
It's a tough one, Gary. Of course, we got to move on to the next one. Phil, of course, Redfall has released from Arcane Austin, and it's been a tough release week for that, coming out to low reviews and a lot of disappointment from many fans. Can you talk about that? What is your thoughts right now as we head into the first week of this game being out?
Yeah, maybe I'll start. I'll hit.
Before he goes on and talks about Redfall, I've played it. It's not the worst game in the world. It's not the best game in the world. They didn't, I don't want to say entirely mislead people, because they kind of did with the way that it was marketed. Everything was on PC. It was all shown at 60 FPS. And then when they launched it, the game has a ton of bugs. Haven't run into any of them except for maybe the AI bug where like enemies will be right in front of you and they don't do anything. Other people have had crazy bugs, which I honestly wish I would have ran into, because it would have made for a great, video.
Mm-hmm.
But his I don't know. We'll go back to the video, but what he says is just.
I'll hit Redfall, but I'll just say all up. There's nothing that's more difficult for me than disappointing the Xbox community. I've been a part of it for a long time. I obviously work on Xbox, head of the business, have a lot of friends, get a lot of feedback. And just to kind of watch the community lose confidence, be disappointed. I'm disappointed. I'm upset with myself. I kind of revisit our process. I think back to the announcement of 60 frames per second, and then we weren't shipping 60 frames per second. That was kind of our punch in the chin, rightfully, a couple weeks ago. And then seeing the game come out, and the critical response was not what we wanted. And it's disappointing.
So I don't know what you make of that, but me personally, like, he's been doing this kind of apology tour since like 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time it was novel, because he came out and he was like, look, Xbox made a lot of mistakes. That one dude before him, I forget what his name is now, it escapes me, but the guy that was like, it's always online, there's no used games.
For the Xbox One.
For the Xbox One, yeah. And when he came on and he was like, look, we made a lot of mistakes, we're reversing a lot of that. The thing that really stuck out to me was in 2016 when he was like, backwards compatibility with Xbox 360. And, we're sorry, we're going to start getting games out. And it was like, oh, wow, like, he's, like, you would have never expected that.
Mm.
And I had, 2 or 3 weeks before that, had traded in my Xbox One.
Yeah.
And then, he's also like, Xbox One S is coming out next year, or this year. And then year after that, in 2017, we're getting the Xbox One X. It's going to be the most powerful Xbox ever. And you're like, oh, okay, they're going to get things back on track. And while I love the Series S that I have. I don't know, like your Xbox One or the Series X that you have.
Yeah, I like it.
But I mean, the features on it are cool. Being able to have multiple games suspended at once and jump between them with the quick resume is cool. But that's like you gotta have games.
Right. For me, the quick resume's kind of a pain because I play a lot of Madden and you have to reconnect to the server, and EA sucks like worse than Microsoft does. So their servers never work right, but just put out a good finished product.
Right. Oh, don't worry. We'll talk about that here in a minute.
And so kind of pick myself up. What can we learn? How can we get better? One thing I'll fight is kind of what went wrong. There's clearly quality and execution things that we can do. But one thing I won't do is push against creative aspirations of our teams. Then a lot of people will say, hey, you've got teams know how to do one kind of game. Just force them to go do the one kind of game that they have a proven track record for. And I'm just not a believer in that. Maybe that means I'll under-deliver for some of our fans out.
So he just said that he will not stifle creative ideas, right, from studios. Like, he's not going to force a studio to only make one kind of game, right? So, that makes sense when you name 343 343. Like, do you think that they would let 343 make a game like Skyrim? No. They're named 343 to make Halo games. Or the Coalition was named directly after a thing from Gears of War. Now, I know that they've had them, like, helping other studios, but do you think they would, like... They're like, oh, hey, we want to make a football game. It won't be officially licensed, because we can't use the players, because EA owns that. But do you think they would let the Gears of War studio make a football game? No. So what he's saying here is just one, it's not true, and it doesn't make any sense with like what they've done.
Who made this Redfall game that they're talking about?
Arcane, which is a studio that was owned by Bethesda.
Okay.
So, and they've made other games before. Personally, I've not liked any of them, just because like the gameplay it just wasn't my kind of game. I played them, but they're not my kind of game. If this Redfall game had like better graphics, 60 FPS, and like AI that worked, to me it'd be like, okay, yeah, this is like a solid 8 out of 10, or maybe a 7 out of 10. I think right now it's in the low 60s or like 6s, But I mean, and that's what he's talking about here. Like, oh, like they've made Dishonored, they've made Prey. Like, we're not going to only make them make those games. I don't believe in that. It's like, dude, you have studios named after characters or things in the video games because that's what the studios are made for. Like, what are you talking about?
Out there, but when a team like Rare wants to do Sea of Thieves, when a team like Obsidian wants to do Grounded, when Tango wants to go do Hi-Fi, when everybody probably thought they were doing Evil Within 3, I want to give the teams the creative platform to go and push their ability, push their aspirations. But I also need to have a great selection of games that are continue to come that surprise and delight our fans. And we under-delivered on that. And for that, I apologize. It's not what I expect, not what I want. But, it's ours to deliver.
So following up on that, Phil, so again, I appreciate the transparency on that, but there is a second component to this. And as you may or may not know, I talk to a lot of people in the Xbox community because I want to understand, what people are excited about, what they're frustrated about, things like that. So kind of sticking on this conversation about Redfall, but it's kind of a bigger general question as well. And I kind of want to read directly from this so I make sure I get it crystal clear. So what goes into the decision to delay a game when you launch it feature incomplete or there's a bunch of technical issues? Obviously, we've seen recent examples around the industry. Redfall and Halo Infinite are two that stick out in my mind for Xbox. We obviously have seen the review scores. Clearly, we've had the opinion that the game should be delayed. We know every developer wants to ship the best game that they possibly can, but from your level, what's the balance there on when to ship a game that may be feature incomplete or have some technical issues, or just simply give it more time and delay it?
Well, I think those are, and I'm happy to go very deep on this. I think if I think about a team's execution on a game, we had a creative vision, and did we realize that vision through the game that we created? That's not a delay question if the answer is no. Like, you can't take something that you started on. This isn't a Redfall specific conversation, right? But we will build games that review in the high 80s, and we will build games that review in the 60s. I mean, it's just kind of part of being in game publishing. And
so that quote right there, as a games publisher, they'll make games that review in the high 80s, review in the low 60s. Would you ever hear PlayStation or Nintendo say that? No, it's not like they're a publisher where, like, I don't know if you know who Embracer Group is. They've gone around, they used to be, remember THQ? Mm-hmm. How they closed down? They're like the rebirth of THQ. Gotcha. They started off as THQ Nordic, and then they changed to Embracer Group.
Oh, I didn't even know they changed their name. Yeah, I
Yeah.
knew about the Nordic.
And they went through and they bought up a whole bunch of small game studios and a few other things. And they don't. They own them and they publish the games that they release. And a publisher like that, you would expect like, okay, yeah, Saints Row comes out, it's kind of crap, whatever. This and then another game comes out recently from them, Dead Island, from a different studio. It's like, okay, that's a little bit better. They're the one giving them the money, but they're not the ones there like telling them what to do. These studios that Phil's talking about, they're owned by Microsoft. They're under Microsoft Game Studios. He's the head. He's the one that when they show like, this is our progress, this is what we've done, he can either say, okay, yeah, good enough, ship it, or, you know, oh no, don't, or whoever's underneath him is whoever's making those decisions. Like, the only thing recently that I can think of was The Last of Us on PC, and that was done by Naughty Dog, and they don't make PC games, so when it came out, it had a ton of problems. But on the PlayStation, worked great. The last thing that I can think of where there was a game that came out that didn't work was in 2014. It was called Drive Club. They released the game. It had a whole bunch of technical issues like the Master Chief Collection. The studio got the game to a functioning state, and then PlayStation, Sony, they closed the studio. They were like, all right, you guys are done. Goodbye. Like, could you imagine how much, either if Halo maybe might have been gone, maybe we wouldn't have Halo Infinite. But if after the Master Chief Collection, Microsoft was like, that is a train wreck. You guys are done. We're taking it. It's done. You're done. Sorry, like, you guys will find jobs somewhere else.
I got a few things. Number one, I think it's crazy that, you know, he wants to keep going back to the creativity aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, it's, at this point, you know, I'm not going to act like I know anything about the development process of a video game.
Neither of us do.
But at the end of the day, if 343 goes up to him and says, hey, we want to make a different game that's not Halo, and they put it out and it sucks and it doesn't work, then you don't do it anymore.
Right.
You know, like, whatever's happening with this Redfall game, if they can't figure it out and, you know, they just put out a broken product, like, it's not, that isn't creativity, that's just negligence of putting out a working thing.
Well, the thing is, too, I really doubt that if this game wasn't in Game Pass, I don't think it would have came out. And it's actually, I think, their first $70 game that they published. Like, okay, like, we're doing $70 now. I guess the campaign is like 12 hours long. You can play it with up to 4 players, but it's, you know, it's super glitchy. Doesn't run at 60 on the Series X or 60 on the Series S. And I mean, I honestly, though, I had fun with it for what it was. But at the same time, it's like, well, I didn't expect much of it. Mm-hmm. And if it makes sense, it's a smooth 30. Like, there's no problems with the frame rate or anything. But the fact that he's like, oh yeah, you know, we're publishing games. Not every game's going to be a 10 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10. You know, there's going to be some games that are 6 out of 10. And he's talking about, too, like, the creative vision of the game doesn't click with some people. It's like, well, yeah, not everyone's going to like your game. And they might rate it a 6 out of 10 for that. Mm-hmm. But the fact that there's so many problems with it, that it's broken and buggy, and that it's just like that's what the problem is. If you make a game and someone doesn't like it, well, then that's just not for them.
Right.
But if you make a game that's not for them and has all these problems, like, well, yeah, no kidding.
That's what I was trying to get at with what I was saying before. It's, I don't know.
Let's go back.
If you're afraid of that, then you shouldn't be in the entertainment business. You shouldn't be in the games business. That said, every time we deliver something below our own internal expectations that surprises us, we should check our process. I don't look at the review scores on Redfall, and there are quality issues, and we're working on those. But I think there's a fundamental piece of feedback that we get that the game isn't realizing the creative vision that it had for its players. That doesn't feel like a, hey, just delay it. that feels like the game had a goal to do one thing, and when players are actually playing, they're not feeling that thing. They're not feeling the creative execution of the team. When a game needs to be delayed, what we did with Halo, we did with Starfield, we did with Redfall, because the production timeline is saying we have this vision and our production timelines don't get us to the completion of that vision, we do delay games. We do that. Learning about the quality, there are clearly, I've seen them. I know there are bugs in Redfall that's launching. But when I look at like the crash rates on the game, because we get all the telemetry of everything that's happened, it's not out of proportion for a game that has just launched. It's kind of in the pocket of what we would.
So as long as the game doesn't crash, he's good with it. It's kind of like what he just said. Do you know how many times like Fallout 4 crashed on my Xbox when I first got it?
Literally Fallout 76 would cause my Xbox to overheat.
Or what was the one game recently? Cyberpunk. When that game came out, I played it for an hour and it crashed 5 times when that launched in December. Like, holy crap. But as long as the game doesn't crash, there was 1 out of every 10 times, sure, it's okay. Like, that's
expect. That's not to deny any of the animation, streaming of texture bugs, the AI bugs that we've seen. We will go work on those. But when I look at the review scores of this game, it's did we have enough of creative differentiation in our core idea? And did we realize that creative ambition? I'm a huge supporter of Arcane Austin. Their track record is awesome. I love a lot of the great games that they've built. This is one where the team didn't hit their own internal goals when it launched. I think it's maybe a little simplistic to just say, hey, if you would have just delayed it 3 months, the core creative of the game would have delivered on something that was different than what it was. So I look at them at different games.
No. If you would have delayed it 3 months, you could have worked out the 60 FPS mode for console, could have worked out the AI bugs, the texture streaming bugs that he talked about. Because there'll be times where you'll be playing the game and you're looking at like writing or something on a wall and it's all fuzzy. And then if you sit there for like 10 seconds, it pops in. But the second you turn around and look at something else and then look back at it, it's fuzzy again. It's just like, that's I mean, maybe not a major like detractor for the game, but it doesn't help when it's stacked on top of bad AI and like all the co-op problems that people are having with the characters are like T-posing and stuff. Like,
I feel like I'm gonna say this a lot throughout this video, but just put out a working product.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure it works. That's literally the most simple answer that you can give to that is just make sure it works. If people don't like the game, the actual game, that's fine. But at least it worked,
Right, and that was with Halo Infinite. Halo Infinite had I like the campaign, I like it a lot. And then it had a very bare minimum multiplayer. But it worked. At least for me it did. I know other people had some problems, but it worked. Oh, Phil.
If there's a production timeline issue, we've been open to delaying. If we just have more bugs than we should have at the end of a game, we're open to delaying. At some point, we have to have a creative vision and put the game out, and reviewers and players will tell us what they think.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, of course. Please, Gary.
So I have just a couple of small observations and then a question. First of all, I want to give Phil props for coming on here today and talk just for a minute about why I admire Phil, because he and I have been here before. Back in 2020 during the pandemic when I was doing Animal Talking, Phil, you'll remember this.
So I'm going to skip through most of what this guy says. He's just kind of blowing Phil at this point about, oh, it's so great you came on. Oh, it's so great the transparency that you have. You heard him. Oh, we've been here before. Like, why are we here again? Why are we having these conversations of why Xbox is failing again? Like, I might have to jump around here for a second, but we're going to basically just skip over what he has to say because
Phil was booked to come on my Dumb Animal Cross PR from Jeff. You're again now, and I salute Phil for that. Is it that much harder for the Phils and the Jim Ryans of the world that create the big, the create, it doesn't work. It hurts everybody. So I just want everyone to be clear. This sucks. So every time somebody takes a risk on something new, and especially if it involves something different in game design, let's try something that has been done before and it doesn't work. It hurts everybody. So I just want everyone to be clear. This sucks for everybody. And
I would just like to make a comment that it sucks for Xbox, not for everybody. People that don't own an Xbox or aren't in Game Pass, PlayStation people, like I own all the consoles, like a Switch, PS4 or PS5, and a PS4, and a Series S. If I didn't care about Xbox or Game Pass, like, who cares? Doesn't hurt me. I'm on PS5. All my games run either at 120 FPS or 60. PlayStation's not going to launch a game, especially something that they're like, this is our first $70 game. They're not going to launch a game and have it not work. Like, again, we've said earlier, if it's the actual game part is something that you don't like, then that's whatever. But the technical issues around it, like, aside from a few minor things with PlayStation, like The Last of Us on PC, it's not going to launch in a bad state. It's just not. That's why when Pokemon Scarlet came out, it was like so shocking that it was like, holy crap, like, how could Nintendo launch a game that runs like a slideshow with characters being off in the distance, and then when you get to them, they just disappear. And that's like one example I can think of. I don't think Nintendo's ever released a game that bad. Like, ever.
My memory, no.
No. Breath of the Wild, sure, that had some frame rate issues in some areas. I'm sure the new one will too. But
even that was delayed a bunch of times.
Right, yeah. It's just it's not bad for everyone. It's bad for Xbox. We just need to make sure we get that straight.
See it in my business, see it in Hollywood, I see it in film and television. It's why so much content is so generic and derivative and formulaic, because everyone's afraid to take a risk. And when something new succeeds, it's good for everyone. When something new and original fails, it's bad for everyone. So I just want to acknowledge that this is like a big shit sandwich, and we all have to take a thing. Focus groups come in. There are third-party companies that will come in and even write like mock reviews or come to hit detection out that will tell you, here's what you can expect the press to make of your game. So usually you've got a sense of what the game is going to be, how it's going to be. And the second part of that is, when a game is released now, it's not like the old days when a cartridge was shipped in a box and the release of the game was the end of the game's like development cycle. Now it's just the 1.0 release is just a point on the roadmap. To what extent, given that what we're talking about here is not just 30 frames, but design issues, things that may be more conceptual, to what extent do you think, or are you committed to continuing to work on the game and getting it maybe a year down the road, Cyberpunk, No Man's Sky, we've seen these redemptive stories in the past. To what extent do you hold out hope that you can still get the game closer to where you wanted it to be at launch?
So again, just touching on this, he talked about how the 1.0 release, or he mentioned the 1.0, isn't the finished product anymore. When you put a game on a disc, it goes out. Again, PlayStation and Nintendo, with their first-party games, don't really do that. They have DLC that adds on top of it. They're not finishing the game after it comes out. This seems to be like a very specific Xbox thing. I mean, look at Mario Kart Tour, or not Mario Kart Tour, Mario Kart 8. Wii U game got put on the Switch, and just recently they've added new stuff to it. New tracks, new characters. They didn't launch the game with three cups and then just add everything afterwards, or new, or Smash Brothers Ultimate. Look at that. It had it launched with 80 characters. They could have easily put 20 characters in there and just sold everything after that. Oh, it's not done yet, so sell it. That's not what they did.
It's so stupid to me that people work hard for their money.
Mm-hmm.
And, somebody who doesn't have Game Pass spent $70 on that game and they're getting a broken product.
At some point, yeah.
It's just... And then, you hear other YouTubers talk about it all the time. When you fork up that $60, $70, you're not paying for what the game's going to be in a year or 2 years. You're paying for what the game is now.
Right. Yeah.
And it should be a finished product, and then, like you said, add that other stuff onto it after the DLCs or whatever, not tons of update patches.
I mean, the one of the best things that I remember, just in recent time, it's almost 10 years old now, wow, thinking about that, was Angry Joe's review of the first Destiny. And as soon as he opened the case where the manual would be, was an advertisement for the DLC. And he's like, wait a minute, isn't this not the full game? He's like, why are you advertising DLC for me? I haven't even put this game in yet. It's like... Oh, all right.
I know that was a lot.
No, at first I thought your words about creative ambition of teams, you especially, I mean, you've lived this, you've done this, are very well said and very spot on. So thank you for that. And that's why I love your voice in this community, because you've created, you've seen kind of ups, and as anybody in the industry, we've all seen downs. And on the score, yeah, we do mock reviews for every game that we launch, and this is like double digits lower than we thought we would be with this game through our mock reviews. And that's what's one of the disappointing things. Like we would never strive to launch a game that we thought was going to review in the low 60s. It's not part of our goals. If you look at our review scores over the last year, it's not a defense at all. If you look at the review scores over the last year, I think the teams have done a better job in upping the level of quality of the games that we've shipped. Some of those games first shipped on PlayStation, but still, when I go through the list of the games, you still have to build a game, you still have to ship a game. And this game was significantly below our internal metrics in terms of where it actually reviewed. But that's not on anybody but us. Like, we have to own.
So what he's talking about here is like a mock review. You have a company come in and they're going to say, oh, this is how the game is probably going to review once it hits like actual review sites like IGN or GameSpot or Kotaku or Polygon or whatever, right? Who is telling them playing that game the way that it came out on a console, on the Xbox, right? Who is being like, oh yeah, no, this is like an 8 out of 10. This is a solid 8 out of 10. Like, I run into no problems. I ran in front of enemies and they didn't shoot me once. Like, whoever they have for their internal mock reviews needs to be fired.
And that's why I'm saying, like, I don't know the first thing about developing a game or anything that goes into it, but at some point, you got quality checks at every workplace, basically, as far as, like, production and factories go.
Yeah.
None of their internal quality guys noticed it.
Well, that's like the same thing with, again, this is beating a dead horse, it feels like, the Master Chief Collection. There is no way that they played that game for more than 10 minutes and weren't like, oh my god, what's wrong with this? Mm-hmm. Instead, it was like, oh, put it out. And we got to get it out. Hey there, Geek Streak. The way that Year 1 DLCs for Destiny 1 were already on the disc was stupid. I guess that's Activision for you. Yeah, Destiny 1. Yeah, Destiny 1 was good. I played a lot of that. But yeah, that's another... Yeah, the DLC was on the disc. When you downloaded the DLC off of the PlayStation or Xbox store, it was like 5 kilobytes just to unlock it. But yeah, like, that internal review team or mock review team or whoever, they gotta go, because they either straight up lied to them to keep their contract, or like there's something seriously wrong with like playing it. Like I said, I didn't run into any major bugs, but the fact of the matter is running out in front of like a group of enemies and they'll just look at you. They're all just looking at you, and it's like, okay. Like, what? Just...
That. In terms of our commitment to the game, absolutely. The team at Arcane is on taking the near-term feedback. We're still working on the 60 frames per second. We have a good timeline for that. We're committed to getting that done, and we're going to continue to work the game. I think we've shown a commitment to games like Sea of Thieves and like Grounded to continue to go and build games. But
so I don't know if you've played or know much about Sea of Thieves or Grounded.
I've played Sea of Thieves before.
Much like Halo Infinite, they launched with the bare minimum of stuff that they could be to be like called a game. Sea of Thieves, I remember that was the thing people said, like, oh, it's kind of fun, but there's not really anything to do.
Yeah.
Grounded released in like a beta for 2 years. It had been out for 2 years, and then they're like, okay, here's our 1.0 release. Think, all the people that played it and bought it for the last 2 years. Same thing with Halo Infinite. Halo Infinite's a fun game. They've added a few new maps. There's a few different battle passes. They run like a little free event every 2 weeks or a month, and then they have like this Fracture event that lasts for a few weeks that is like more free stuff. Like you don't have to buy any of it. And it's like, yeah, that stuff's cool. That stuff's fun. It would have been nice if they had all this ready and we were already on like season 5 or 6. Mm-hmm. They have a huge problem with launching incomplete games. Like, and he's the head of Xbox, so everything, it has to fall on him.
I also know that these games are $70, and I'm not gonna I'm gonna take full responsibility for launching a game that needs to be great. I think what I have with the Xbox community, what I am a part of, is a team. There's still questions that pop every so often of how committed is the company to this category. When are we just going to push Xbox out of the market? There's a lot of Twitter firing of Phil right now, which is fine. I'm way overpaid for the role I have anyway. So I get that's my responsibility. But we will remain committed to the game and the players as long as the players want to go play games. And that's my commitment to the community. I'm kind of at a low point right now in terms of my delivery on that commitment to the community. But it very much stays. I want to support the team. And I want to support the creative ambitions of the teams. And I want to support the players. And we let a lot of people down this week with the launch of the game. But we will continue to strive on. You have to, right? That's what creative is about.
No, you absolutely do. And to kind of start transitioning this into hopefully more happy news, but I do want to address something, around that. Obviously, today you announced the Xbox Game Showcase, which will be happening this June. And obviously, there's going to be a lot of new reveals and surprises that come out of that, which is great. But I am going to bring it back again to another common theme that I do hear through the community. And I've actually said this to you in the past, but it's about communication coming from Xbox. I do feel back in 2021, you did a fantastic job with communication, which arguably has been the best year during this current generation of Xbox. Obviously, we know that 2022 was a light year for Xbox as far as releasing titles. Now, last year, during the showcase, you had the 12-month plan. You didn't necessarily deliver on all the games coming.
No, we didn't deliver.
Not
necessarily. We didn't deliver.
Yeah, absolutely. So my point of bringing that up is this, talking about some of the lessons learned that come out of that. And obviously, even with not every game making the 12 months, going back to, again, game development, things happen. Things aren't always going to come on time. But as we go into this showcase, one of the common themes that I hear is I don't know enough about things that you've announced in the past, like even more specifically going back to 2020. And I'll just run down a quick list of it. Vowed, Perfect Dark, Everwild, which is something we really don't know that much about. Fable, State of Decay 3, Contraband. Obviously, we've seen a little more in Hellblade 2. We have studios like In Exile and Compulsion Games that we know are working on things, but we haven't seen any real updates on that. So I titled all my questions Balance and Communication, because even in this, it's like, what is that balance on when you show something that is going to be years down the road, and kind of that cadence of providing updates along the way. And obviously, as we go into this showcase, not that you need to reveal anything specific here, but what were some of those lessons learned from last year's showcase that you'll bring into this one?
Yeah.
All right, real quick. What he's talking about is, I think it was 2018. It was either 2017 or 2018. When Phil's on stage at the E3 conference, and he was like, we bought this studio, we bought this studio. They bought like 9 or 10 studios. And he's like, and they're all working on, games. And I think at some point, they, like he said, they showed like an Avowed trailer, Perfect Dark. They announced at some point Fable. And at the time, still Halo Infinite was, still being made. And the only thing to come out since they announced their initial like purchasing of all those studios was Halo Infinite. And obviously, I mean, we've seen how that ended up being. Like, what there's still a ton of games. Like you can blame COVID for a little while because like, oh well, yeah, they have to work from home, they can't get in the office. It makes things a little bit more difficult to do and everything. And but it's just like it's like kind of coming to a close now. Like, where is this stuff at? Why haven't you mentioned it before? The only thing, honestly, like I paid very close attention with Halo Infinite's development, and it was like this person left, this like game creative director left, and then another person left, and another person left. It just doesn't seem like they have anybody there to go to these studios to do checks on, like, do you have a functioning campaign yet? Are you adding multiplayer? Like, what's the state of the game? And I almost feel like they're afraid because with Halo Infinite, it was like it restarted development like 3 or 4 times. They wanted to make it a hero shooter, then they tried to make it like an RPG, and then people just keep getting hacked off and leaving.
It sucks that when this generation of consoles came out, it was almost impossible for the average person to just be able to go and get one.
Yeah.
And now, you walk through the stores and you can actually see them on the shelves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, shocking now.
I mean, other than, up-resing a few games and, the quick resume, there's no real purpose for people to genuinely want to go out and spend their money on it because the games are broken and
they don't
not
work.
Coming out.
They're not finished. Here, quick check-in with comments here. With Geek Streak, I'm a Xbox fan at first, and even though I don't own one since I'm a PC player, but it sucks they don't have anything good exclusive-wise, which, don't worry, he's gonna we'll get to the point in the interview when Phil touches on that, and I have a lot to say about that. And when they do get them, they suck besides Halo Infinite. Right, I mean, I like Halo and Gears, but yeah, it's... Hey there, Death Trooper. Welcome back. The only game they actually gave us an update was Forza. Yeah, Forza, which I'm not a car guy. Like, I don't really... I'm not a race car or a racing game. Maybe outside of Mario Kart, which I don't know if you can call that a racer. But I bought Forza, and it's like, wow, this looks really good. It plays really good. You have a 30 FPS quality mode for the Series S. You have a 60 quality mode or a 60 mode. Like, they deliver those games on time. They're always good. They always end up with DLCs. It's like, at this point, there was a few podcasts and videos that I've watched where people are like, what do you think of when you think of Xbox? Like, what's like an Xbox mascot? And honestly, it's the Forza car. Like
basically, yeah.
The car that they put on the box art, that's their mascot, essentially. That's like the most successful Xbox branded one. I know they've had Age of Empires, which I believe is in the thumbnail behind Phil that I made, but like Geek Streak, yeah, we have all these games that are announced, but you never hear anything from the Xbox team, and on top of that, there's no real hype for original IPs when compared to ongoing franchises. Right, yeah, like, I'd love to see them come out with something like a brand new, like Avowed, but as far as I understood, development's restarted on that twice. Like, it was supposed to start off, I think, if I'm thinking of the right game, as like a Skyrim type thing, and then they bought Bethesda. So it's like, we don't really have a need for that anymore, right. Do you? I mean, you could still make it, but you would want to release it apart from the game, because I could see them launching Avowed, and then, like a month later, Elder Scrolls 6, boom. Like, you're either going to buy it and quit playing it immediately when that comes out, or you're just going to be like, well, I'll just wait till, Elder Scrolls comes out. Yeah, all right, we'll go back.
You might try to get me on positive. I'm not in positive mode this week, so I'll apologize for staying in kind of cranky mode. But in terms of lessons learned, and I'll even go back to the Redfall videos on IGN of showing videos of the game running at 60 on PC, at the point knowing that the game was going to run 30 frames per second at launch on console. Like, we have to be transparent about what we're showing, that what we're showing is representative of what our console customer, our most committed customer to our brand, financially committed, what they're going to see, what they're going to play, and that transparency just has to get better. And I'm not pointing at anybody but myself, right? I guess at some point I will have enough knocks against me that it's somebody else here. But that I think it's transparency in what we're building, what our aspiration is for the game, what it's going to look like, what the features are. And it drives me crazy when we self-inflicted wounds of kind of putting things out there of communication that's confusing or misleading about what the actual end product is going to be. So you can try to take me to positive space. I'm just not in that headspace right now. That said, when I go and I look at Showcase, and I'm not going to try to oversell Showcase here, because if I were on the other side of watching this, it's like, hey, after Redfall, I'm going to put my hands on the controller, and that's what's going to take to kind of prove to me. But that's not what Showcase is. So I'm very enthusiastic about Showcase. We're going to announce some things that people haven't seen, some new games. We're going to give updates to some of the things that were on your list. The other thing that gets me really excited is when I look forward over the next quarters, which has always been my focus of how do we get a big game out every quarter at quality, things are lining up finally after some of the slowdown through COVID. I'm tired of talking about that. But I can now see that we've got games coming every quarter that I think will surprise and delight our customers. We still have to deliver on the creative.
So that's what he just said is like it kind of huge news, and I don't know if I've really seen too many people talk about it or bring it up. Most people react to what he's going to say later on here, like I will, but he just said that they're on their way to having a big game with good quality every quarter. So once every 4 months out of these 20-some studios, they're supposed to be launching a huge game. I mean, ideally, that's what you want. And he's excited. They're going to show new games at this Xbox showcase and updates on stuff that guy just talked about, which he brought up Perfect Dark Avowed and a few other things. Personally, I want to see more Perfect Dark. That was a first-person shooter, and there's rumors now that it's a third-person shooter like Gears of War. So I'll be interested to see exactly what it is they're talking about, maybe some new IPs. But yeah, I mean, just imagine a world where every 4 months there's a huge Xbox game.
Yeah,
that's good.
It would be nice. Kind of going back to that dude's comment, I wanted to touch on it earlier, but I couldn't think of what I wanted to say. I think it sucks because, when you look at it, it's not just video games anymore where it's original IPs. I mean, like Hollywood, everything's getting
Movies,
remade.
yeah.
Like it's the thing we're going through right now. Just remake things and
yeah,
sequel.
Yeah, there's definitely a lack of. Well, there is a lack of creativity, but I would say, and I mean I understand why, having tried different things here with like my channel, that's just why I went and made new channels, because it's like, well, I took my time, like I work 8.5 hours a day, get 2 days off a week, like everybody else. I have things to do around my house, I want to spend time with my wife and kids. Like, do I spend that time doing something new that may not do well here on this channel? And then when you do that and it doesn't work out the way you want, it's like, well, why bother at all?
Right.
Which is part of the reason why there was such a huge gap in between uploading videos and making stuff. But having made these new channels, things are working out better. That was a whole different rant I went on earlier on the Halo stream. But yeah, they're worried about like, oh, we know this works, we know people like it, so let's just keep doing it over and over and over and over again. If you make something good and quality, people will come.
Right.
You just have to have it in the right place, which is something that I've learned.
We still have to deliver on the technical. Not every game we ship is for everybody. We know that. Like, I'm not trying to build the one game to rule them all. We will have different creative takes and we have a very diverse portfolio when you think about the stuff that Microsoft Game Studios builds. But I like that. I think for what we're trying to do as Xbox, which isn't to mimic any of the other platforms out there, it's create our own brand and identity. The diversity of what we build, hopefully, will end up being a strength. But we have to do it at quality. We have to do it on time, and we have to show people what they're actually going to see. We have to show gameplay, and I think I'm kind of beyond that. Like, we've got to put great games in the hands of our players. There's nothing else.
If I could follow up on that, and I apologize, I do not want to dominate the conversation, but I make sure I want to follow up on the point of everything that you just said, and I'll take it from a personal standpoint. I've been a big believer in what Xbox has been building since about 2016, right? Xbox Play Anywhere, Game Pass, what you're doing with the Series X and S, just the cloud initiative, everything. I love all the services and the marketing message that you present to the community. But to your point, and for me personally, I have Game Pass. My kids play it. We all love it. But you even mentioned, delivering quality experiences every quarter, things like that. That's the sentiment that we get from the community right now. That's the sentiment that I even have of, it's great to talk about these things. I think we've been talking about them ad nauseum. It's like, when are we going to get to that point of actually delivering these experiences? Like I just ran down those games. There's 20 something studios. Forget Activision. Xbox Game Studios, what it is today. There's more than enough studios and titles out there that we're all anticipating. And I think that is the common frustration that I see out there from people, that it's like, we're tired of hearing, wait till next year. And I know you know that, but
I know,
it's like,
I know.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Just a brief comment. That's basically what it's been since, I think, 2018. Next year. Next year is going to be the year. Next year is going to be Xbox's year. Next year they're going to have this. Next year they're going to have that. It's been next year for a long time.
Right. I would like to ask him, and I don't know if this is information that you can just like pull up right now, but like, you go to a restaurant and you're waiting a little bit longer for your food. You know, you go to grocery stores, not as many employees. Like, it's hard to get companies to get people to work.
Yeah.
Are they just like understaffed at these gaming studios where they can't get the games out quick enough, and then they're putting them out too fast and they're not working, or like?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like, well, for instance, to pull it back to Halo, right? Halo 343 as a studio, the last time that I think it had it updated with like how many people were working there was like 500 something people. They were still working on the Master Chief Collection. They were making Halo Infinite. But they also, part of the problem with that was they had tons of contractors, right? They would come in on 18-month contracts. They would do work and then get kicked out because their contract was over, and then not be allowed to reapply for the company for another 6 months. Which means they had to bring in new people that didn't know anything about either how the game engine, like the tools to make the game, or so they had to learn. They had to spend like 3 or 4 months learning, and then the rest of the time working on it. Like, are they doing that with these other studios? They're just bringing in these 18-month contracts. They have to spend maybe almost half of that learning how to work on the game, and then only working on the game for a little bit, and then being kicked. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I mean, that would definitely make it so that it takes years to make a game if you're bringing people in like this. Let's see, what do we got here? With Geek Streak. Yeah, and we all have these games that are announced, but you never hear anything from the Xbox team. On top of that, there's no real hype for any. Oh yeah, we read that one. Death Trooper. Hopefully they actually put checkpoints in the next Perfect Dark. yeah, that would be nice. They're close to that. We've heard nothing at all, though. To be honest, they only really care about seeing Halo at the showcase. And if it's not there, then Halo is dead to Xbox. As minimum, they should mention Season 4. So there are a lot of Halo YouTubers. Well, not a lot. There's been a few that I've been watching for a long time. And one of them is very specifically like, oh, they're going to show a whole bunch of stuff at this Xbox showcase. I want them to. I want to see what the next season is. I want to see what the game is that Certain Affinity is making, because they're working on a Halo project. Presumably Battle Royale mode. Presumably. And season 3 season 3 ends like 10 days, supposedly ends 10 days after this Xbox showcase. So this would be a great place to just drop a trailer in. But honestly, like, I wouldn't even expect that. Mm-hmm. They'll make a little post on Twitter with a trailer. Hey, this is a thing. They'll put out some YouTube shorts and a YouTube video. Season 4 preview will be like 45 seconds long, because that seems to be all they do. And then that'll be it. But I don't expect it to be there. I feel like now with Game Pass and the focus on PC has decreased for the need for better games by Microsoft, since they don't need to make games to sell consoles anymore. Right? He'll talk about that here in a minute on this thing, and I'll talk about it too, because there's just, like I said, there's a lot to say. It says Xbox is by far the best for customer service and doing the best for the players, even if they don't do great with games. Sony isn't great, and Nintendo is dreadful for consumers. I mean, honestly, like, the best thing for me for the Xbox, outside of playing like Halo, I'm not really buying new games on it. I use it as like the best Xbox 360 I've ever had, and then for Halo. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I've been subscribed to Gold, but I don't think I've redeemed an Xbox Live Gold game in like a year. No. Because they're just not games I'm interested in. Even though it feels like the console versions of the Xbox games have gotten worse after the games started to go on PC. I mean, well, that's going to be kind of natural where they run better on PC. Halo, perfect example.
This year started out well.
Yeah,
I thought Developer Direct was received well. The team did a really good job, I thought, with the messaging around to your point, around setting expectation. And I will even say, yes, I'm rooting for the home team here, but I'll say over delivering on expectations of that show versus what it was. I think the drop of Hi-Fi to say, hey, if you've got Game Pass, you don't even have to buy the game. Like, just go click. People loved Hi-Fi. Something we don't talk a lot about that same month, Age 2 on console shipped. Truth be told, more people are playing a bunch of people are playing Hi-Fi and Age 2, but Age 2 actually has more players right now. But all the fanfare goes to the highly rated kind of new Hi-Fi. Get that. I know the review scores on Minecraft Legends. Minecraft, I think, always reviews somewhere kind of different than the top. But if I look at the reaction, I think we've already had over 3 million people playing. I saw, like, its launch week, it was the #1 retail game on the Switch in Japan, which isn't always where Microsoft sits in terms of sales. So I feel like momentum is building, and then something like Redfall happens, and the Xbox community should demand a lot from us as a team, where we sit inside of Microsoft. We've got the resources to do better.
Just a brief comment on what he just said about Xbox fans should demand better. I think we have been. Right? Like, I mean, I know I have. Things I've seen online, people have been like, that's the meme, Xbox has no games. Mm-hmm.
It's been like that for years. Literally years.
Almost a decade, since 2013, since the Xbox One launched. Like, people have and obviously people demanded better. That's why the Xbox One did a complete 180 with the online services and no used games and stuff like that. But I mean, yeah, people have been demanding better for a long time. I mean, Halo 2 Anniversary, so much worse on Xbox One S than I remember. And the campaign gives me issues on running on the... Unlike running on the Series X. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's true. I thought Minecraft Legends done well. I don't know anything about it. Skill Up done a review and said that he really liked it. Yeah, I mean, as far as I understand, yeah, it's like he said, it reviews somewhat higher. I'm not really a Minecraft guy, but I mean, yeah, it runs, was rated good, I guess. I don't know if Minecraft's the Legends or something you play, but
you can always go back to what I said earlier. Just if people don't like the core aspect of your game, that's one thing. It's opinion, but make sure it works. Like,
yeah, it's got to work.
It's got to work.
2022 was, as you said, a very light year, I think is what you said. I might have other words for it. And then 2023, we started well, and this was a knockback. But it's our job to go and deliver on the next games. I can only look forward, right? I can sit here and wallow in my own frustration. But all I can do is say, I'm going to do better tomorrow than I did yesterday, and continue to support the teams and continue to grow. But yeah, I think it is ours to prove that. I can say now, and everybody can already stop. I don't want to hear what Phil has to say about the future. And I kind of fully respect that point of view, that we've got Starfield coming. We've got Forza coming. We've got Hellblade coming. Like, we've got collections of games. I'm seeing very good builds of Avowed and stuff. Like, we're in, like, I can see it. But until you have a controller in your hand and you're smiling from playing our games, none of my words should matter.
Shout out to Honey for sponsoring this episode.
And I want to go back to that in the case of Redfall, even just as a case study for things like this when they happen in general. Because Redfall wasn't even the only game to stumble out of the gate this week. Look at the PC version of Jedi Survivor. Fascinated, as you might know, I'm fascinated by the subject of failure because I've experienced a lot of it in my life. Phil, both in general and in the case of Redfall. I know you said you were going to work in towards kind of turning the game around, but like, do you have a formal process, and what does it look like in the case of Redfall when something doesn't meet expectations? Is it something you get into right away, or do you wait for the dust to settle? What is the post-mortem process? What is the what went wrong and how do we prevent this from happening again process look like at Xbox?
Yeah, it's a great point. And I think I love your quote, Gary. I might lift that from you. People don't have to care about this, but I'll talk about it. When we acquire studios, there's games that are in development when we acquire a studio, and then there's things that are either really early in development or not even conceived yet. And I think we need to improve on engaging in games that are midway through production when they become part of Xbox. I do think there's a different expectation for a game and even a team when you've been third party and all of a sudden you become part of first party. There's a different expectation in terms of how you're going to perform on our console. I think there's a different competitive set when people look at what this game is and the other games that they're going to say, hey, I want this game to feel as competitive as this other game on another console platform in our case. And we didn't do a good job early on in engaging with Arcane Austin to really help them understand what it meant to be part of Xbox and part of first party, and use some of our internal resources to help them and kind of move along that journey even faster. So we kind of left them to go work on the game. They're a very talented team. I love that team, and I still do, and I will totally bet on them to do another great game. But when Matt Booty and Jamie Leaders running ZeniMax and I sit down, I think we can engage earlier with our different studios. And I do think there's a difference when we come in when the creative's already set on a game. That's not washing our hands of any of the creative. Every game we ship from our teams is an Xbox game. And so it's a full responsibility for it. But thinking about how our internal processes of dev assistance, even some of our internal ATG resources, what's the Advanced Technology Group, and how those work with our internal teams. I think we can do a better job with our internal teams. We did a better job with Starfield. Again, nobody should believe it until they're playing the game. But that game was earlier on in production, and it was easier for us to kind of swarm a bunch of people to go and kind of help with some of the technology on our platform and ensure that we're going to ship a quality experience there. And we should have been there for Harvey and the team earlier. I think that's on us. And then through the process, it's an Unreal game. We have a bunch of studios that have done some really great work on Unreal over the years. And I think we were too late to help in that when they had.
So, I mean, this like rant that he's going on, basically, I mean, he's saying that, Xbox is taking responsibility for not helping them with Xbox's resources for like getting this game into a better shape that it should have been, right? I mean, at some point though, aside from like the parent company taking like all the blame for it, which is like what he's essentially, I think, what he's trying to do here, the studios still needs to be held accountable too. Unless they were telling them like, hey, this game's not ready, we it's taken us a while to figure this out, and they were like, well, it has to go out in May. It just has to. That's just too bad. It has to go out. Then yeah, sure. Then it's on them. But the studio still needs to be held. Like he said, it was an Unreal game. I'm pretty sure they've been working in the Unreal Engine since Dishonored. I might be wrong about that, but like you know how to make the game with the game. You shipped like 4 other games that people really like with Unreal. So I mean, it seems like it's Xbox's problem. Hey there, David. Xbox just needs to go AAA title route instead of following PlayStation with indies. And now they need to copy Steam. I don't know. We'll have to see about that. Why does it take Xbox forever to produce a game? That's their main issue. Consoles are outdated at this point. Now Xbox is a Steam-like service. Bring back the AAA titles. Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like, I don't know if you just jumped in. We were talking about Halo Infinite being developed and how they use contractors and how it seems like that keeps pushing back their release timeline. Xbox needs big titles, and hopefully those are coming. Halo's been a letdown. I agree. Gears has been, I really like Gears 4 and 5. It's just taken them. Gears 6 should have come out this year, or even last year, personally. Everything he says is true, though. Exclusives. Oh, yeah, well, we haven't gotten to that point yet. Will not beat Sony. Sony won. Oh, they did win a long time ago. Gears not been mid, considering it's been ages since. Yeah, that's what I was saying. But yeah, I mean, hopefully what he says about Starfield is true. That when they bought Bethesda, it was early enough so they could be like, oh yeah, you can do this and it'll make it run better. I'm hoping that Starfield does not come out and just,
If it does, it's going to be...
Dude, if it is, that it's going to be so damaging to Xbox as a brand that I was rooting for them to get the Activision thing, because they talked about, we want to bring back Crash, we want to bring back Spyro, we want to do, make games that they haven't made with the IP that they had for so long. It's like, no, I don't know if I want them to have it.
Just scary. It's... spend money on a product and you expect it to work and you expect it to be good, and now you're playing the lottery with am I going to buy this game and is it going to work?
Yeah. It's just yeah.
Certain issues that they were working through, which any team will. It's nothing to do with the specific engine, but we have a lot of experience, and we needed to get on that earlier with the team, and we didn't do that. And that's not an excuse. You asked just to kind of diagnose. So when the 60 frames per second issue came up, we were definitely diving in. We had people from the Coalition and people from Rare and stuff looking, both teams that have done some really great work with Unreal to help us build a 60 FPS plan. But obviously that was a plan that had to be in place last fall in order for us to really be in a position to have it at launch. And I take that as learning, as painful as it is. But as you said, it's part of getting to success are those learnings and that diagnosis. There's a bunch of other stuff I could go into, but then we end up with kind of dev doc, which I'm happy to do. But yeah.
Well, Phil, we don't have much time with you, so I'm going to go around the table, give everybody one final question for Phil. I'm going to rattle off a couple quick ones with you, Phil. Of course, we talk about 60 frames, 30 frames. Should Xbox players expect a clear message this summer with Starfield with 30 and 60 frames? That's a big lesson learned, as you brought up. Should we expect that answer? It's clear as day?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a great one. Another one, you see a lot of conversation, of course. I want to praise you and the team for really elevating the PC side of this Xbox ecosystem. I think we've seen a lot of great strides in that. But when you see the community talk about the console side of things, do you think you've lost the focus or maybe put too much onto the PC side? Do you think that the console is still getting the console love that it deserves, whether it be the homepage update, achievements, of course, looking forward and using the power of this next gen? Do you think you guys have lost that focus, or is it still there, and can we see more love on that side?
Well, we'll definitely continue to focus on making our console experience as great as it can be. I like the homepage refresh and some stuff. I will say, this might be disruptive as well. We have a different vision. Paris talked about this. It's play the games you want with the people you want anywhere you want. We want Xbox to be something that people who buy our console can feel like they're a member of. Obviously, who are playing on PC, who are playing on cloud, that they feel like they're full members of our ecosystem. Game Pass players can play on many different devices, and we remain fully committed to that. We're not in the business of out-consoling Sony or out-consoling Nintendo. There isn't really a great solution or win for us. And I know that will upset a ton of people, but it's just the truth of the matter is that when you're third place in the console marketplace and the top two players are as strong as they are and have, in certain cases, very, very discrete focus on doing deals and other things that will that kind of make being Xbox hard for us as a team. That's on us, not on anybody else. Our vision is that everybody who's on console has to feel like they have a great experience and they're a first-class citizen. They've invested a ton in our platform. But we are not in a position, and I see it out there. I see commentary that if you just build great games, everything would turn around. It's just not true that if we go off and build great games, all of a sudden you're going to see console share shift in some dramatic way. We lost the worst generation to lose in the Xbox One generation, where everybody built their digital library of games. So when you go and you're building on Xbox, we want our Xbox community to feel awesome. But this idea that if we just focused more on great games on our console, that somehow we're going to win the console race, I think doesn't really lay into the reality of most people. Like 90% of the people every year who walk into a retailer to buy a console are already a member of one of the three ecosystems, and their digital library is there. This is the first generation where the big games that they're playing were games that were available last gen. When you think about Fortnite and Roblox and Minecraft, like the continuity from generation to generation is so strong. I see a lot of pundits out there that kind of want to go back to the time where we all had cartridges and discs and every new generation was a clean slate and you could switch the whole console share. That's just not the world that we are in today. There is no world where Starfield's an 11 out of 10 and people start selling their PS5s. That's not going to happen. So what we have to do, and we have this unique vision because we see what creators want to do. Creators want to build games that can meet players on any screen. People play with their friends regardless of what other screen they're on. And the console is the core of the Xbox brand. There's no doubt. So like we will stay focused on making sure that console experience is awesome. But I know some people want to hold us up of just being a better green version of what the blue guys do. And I'm just going to say, like, there's not a win for Xbox in staying in the wake of somebody else. We have to go off and do our own thing with Game Pass, with the stuff we do with xCloud, and the way we build our games.
Wow.
Wow is right. That's basically the end of the clip that I have here, so figured I might as well just go full screen. Let me ask you a question, Jordan. When you bought your Nintendo Switch, why did you buy it?
Breath of the Wild.
Right, a Zelda game. Okay. Oh yeah, and they also have Pokemon, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
And they have Mario. When you bought your PS5, what would you, or even your PS4, what'd you buy that for?
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man, right? At the time, you could only get that on PlayStation at the time. That's right, it wasn't on PC yet. When you bought your Xbox, what did you buy your Xbox for?
Halo.
For Halo, right? Because Halo's, it's not on Switch, it's not on PS5, it's on PC, but like, what is he talking about, man? Like, what?
It's
Whoa.
It's amazing to me that somebody who's in charge of that company can say something like that.
Like, what? That is why in the thumbnail I have Phil Spencer's picture, and next to it I put, "We can't win." That's basically, literally what he just said. He said they're not in the business of out-consoling PlayStation or Nintendo. Because at this point, the way he looked at it is with losing the Xbox One and the PS4 generation, I'm sure they're aware. A ton of people, like myself, went from the 360 to the PlayStation 4. You got your digital library there, you got other games there, but guess what? I came back to Xbox because you could only play Halo there. You could only play Gears of War there at the time. This is before they put all this stuff on PC. Now, here's another good question, right? If they're not in the business of, like, the way he's talking about, there's no way Starfield's going to be an 11 out of 10. And they're going to people are going to trade in their PS5s to get an Xbox to play it, then why isn't it on PlayStation?
Right.
What did you spend, what is it, like $9 billion, $7 billion on Bethesda for? And make Starfield exclusive if you don't expect people to buy an Xbox for Starfield.
Right.
One of the, I think, what big mistake that they did is, I mean, putting the games on the PC is great. You know, we got people here in the comments talking about how they don't have an Xbox, but they play Game Pass on PC, right? Well, then, why don't, instead of, because they're going to put it on Steam. Starfield's going to pop up on Steam as well, published by Microsoft. Make it an Xbox Game Pass app exclusive. They're still on the PC, but they're in the Xbox, right? People are going to buy it on there. People are, you know, a lot of people are going to get on Game Pass on PC, play it there. Get it on Game Pass, play it on Xbox. That's probably what I'm going to do before I buy it. Just because I don't expect it to work great when it comes out. Yeah. So I'm not going to drop $70 on it. But then, like, also, he's saying, like, oh, yeah, I just see people saying, you know, just make great games. And people will, you know, it'll fix your problem. It's like, well yeah, man. 360 had Halo 3, Halo Reach, ODST, Gears, Fallout, the Forza. For a long time, it was the place to play Call of Duty. Like, people came to the console because it had those games and they were good experiences. And now, I don't know, man. Like, I'm blown away that he's basically like, well, we lost, so we're just going to do Game Pass, and we're going to release a game every quarter. Hopefully they're good. Hopefully you like them. If not, well, whatever, you know. Like,
I think at the core of gaming, you know, it's called a gaming console. You
right.
know, obviously, like, I use my Xbox primarily, and I watch YouTube on it. I watch Netflix. I watch YouTube TV. I do basically everything on my Xbox, even though my TV is a smart TV. But when you buy a like, I could do everything that I do on my Xbox on my PlayStation as far as YouTube and all that stuff goes. But you need games, and whether or not he says or not, in my opinion at least, if you have good games, you're going to sell consoles because people are going to want to play those games on your console.
Right.
It doesn't matter. For some people, it's not going to matter what your home screen looks like. You know?
Yeah, no, some people don't care about that. I do, but
I do
not,
too.
Not everybody does.
But as long as it's convenient, you know, as long as it's not a mess. It doesn't have to be the greatest. Just make great games. It's a gaming console.
Yeah. I mean, that just makes absolutely zero sense. Like, I understand, like, Nintendo Switch is en route to being the best-selling console of all time. It's like past 130 million units. And if they release Switch 2, if it's still under the Switch, they're going to count that towards it. So it's going to right now it was the PS2, which was like 150 million. So I mean, it's close to being the best console ever sold. And the reason why, do you think anyone would buy a Nintendo Switch if they could get their games on PC? They'd be playing Zelda at 4K, probably 120, 240 frames with mods. And, like, there's no way the Switch would sell 130 million if you could get those games on PC. Look at not Breath of the Wild, Scarlet and Violet. People have the bootleg copies on their PC with the Switch emulator, and it runs, I think, at 60 frames per second in 4K, no stuttering, none of the problems on the Switch. Like, if that was available to the average consumer, they could just log into Steam or a Nintendo Store app or eShop app or whatever on your desktop. You'd still have people buying the Switch because they want to take it with them.
Right.
But it would be... it wouldn't be 130 million.
No.
I get your point there. A lot of people are out there and will only have one console at a time and won't have an Xbox, a Switch, and a PlayStation. Right. Now Sony's going to put more games on PC. Sony is putting their games on PC. And it's smart for them to do so. But they're not launching, like, what is it? Spider-Man 2 is supposed to come out this year, they think.
Yeah, in the fall.
Yeah. They're not going to put Spider-Man 2 on Steam 3 months afterwards because I guarantee you, within a week, it's probably going to sell like 15 million copies. People are going to go out and buy more buy PlayStations to play Spider-Man 2. They're like, oh yeah, I had that on my PS4. It was really good. Xbox forces you to use first-party storage and only lets you install the Series X versions. Right. Yeah, and that is something else. That part of the reason why I like playing on the PS5 is sometimes if the game doesn't run great, like Hogwarts Legacy on the PS5, it runs pretty good. You could tell there's some issues in some areas. I just downloaded the PS4 version last night because it just released, and it's like super smooth at 60. You unlock that frame rate and no problems. You think his strategy is correct, but they also... Yeah, I mean, they do. They do need really good games. It's just... It just blows my mind that he just says, one, as a publisher, oh yeah, we'll publish games that get rated 60, 50, 80, whatever. And then, oh yeah, people just say we just need to make good games. But that... I mean, isn't that the goal?
Yeah.
To make good games? To have people come to your ecosystem, to your console... to your Game Pass app or whatever to play those games?
I might have just zoned out when he was talking, but like if you're gonna say something like that,
yeah,
then explain what your true strategy is then. Unless it's some big maybe at the showcase. I don't know.
I don't know.
Like if you don't think that making great games are gonna sell more of your consoles, then elaborate on what you think is gonna do that.
Well, I don't think at this point it seems the way he was worded that he doesn't care if they buy your console or not. They want people to play to feel included no matter where they play. So if you're streaming it to your phone, if you're on PC, if you're on your Xbox, which is again it's all cool. But if you have games that are only accessible through the Xbox brand, then you're gonna pull people to your brand, whether you sell an Xbox at the store because it's like, oh, Starfield's out, oh, it's only on Xbox, or you're on YouTube and you get a Game Pass app or ad for Starfield, oh, it's only available on Game Pass for PC. Sure, it's $15. Yeah, do it. It just blows my mind that he's like, yeah, we gave up, we lost the Xbox One generation. Oh, what's going on with the mic or the cam here, making me look like I'm drugged out. Oh, what is going on with the camera here? Is my camera dying in real time? I think it is.
It's back on.
It keeps going out though. I don't know, guys. Thank you for joining us here. Phil's trying to say we want to abandon consoles and do everything online publishing, but are scared to do so. Maybe old heads, console owners won't be able to understand it, but they would if you have great games like a bunch, right? All right, we're gonna turn that off since it's making me all. But yeah, guys, thanks for jumping in here. This is absolutely mind-boggling that this is how the head of Xbox looks at things. Whether they think they make great games or not, they're not going to gain any traction, or people aren't going to want to come to their platform. It's wild. Yeah. Do you have any closing thoughts, Jordan?
Make good games that work.
Yeah, that's sounds good to me. But all right, guys, thanks for jumping in here. I really appreciate it. If you haven't yet already, please subscribe if you're new around here, and don't forget, please. Yeah, the camera is dead, Death Trooper. Give the video a thumbs up. I would greatly appreciate it. But until next time, everyone, I'd like to thank you all for joining me here, and see you guys in the next video.